I don't understand.
Why?
And I have
Yeah, it is now. Just turn it on the first thing. That's all. Oh, this music is bad. That same thing from yesterday. It's all flat.
Am I good to go? Boker Tov, Good Juntif. We are here to continue with our Yom Kippur services and to begin Shacharit. And once again, we have the honor to be able to listen to Shacharit as is chanted by Alan Reisman. And I know that his gentle chanting will definitely help to create the spiritual atmosphere that we all look forward to and crave on Yom Kippur. And even though we might not be together physically, that his chanting will allow us to be together spiritually. So we are going to begin the service on page 60 with the Birchot HaShachar, and if you'd like, please rise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan l'sakbivina l'avchim ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani b'tzomo.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam al bisharmim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zakef kifufim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rakal aretz alamayim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shel sali kol tzaki.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher achim mitzadik gaver.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam aziyas reg b'gvura.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam atei Yisrael b'tivara.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanaten li'ayef koach.
Amen.
Baruch atah Nenu Chayim, Uko Yom Lakeinu Chesed Rakamim. Nenu Chayim, Uko Yom Lakeinu Chesed Rakamim. Ve'enek V'nei Korenu, Tiknaleinu Chasadim Tovim Baruch atah Adonai. Kamel Chasadim Tovim Limo Yisrael.
Amen. Please remain standing and turn to page 75 for the Pesukei de Zimra.
Baruch Shemar V'Hayalam. Baruch Hu. Baruch Oseh Bereshit. Baruch Omer Ve'oseh. Baruch Ozer Umakayim. Baruch Merchem al Haaretz. Baruch Merchem al Habriot. Baruch Shalem Sakatov L'Reyav. Baruch Haila'ad V'Kayam L'Netzach. Baruch Podeh Umatzil. Baruch Shemo. Yachid Chei Ha'olamim, Melch B'Shubach U'Farayad Shmo Hagadol Baruch atah Adonai, Melch V'Chalal B'Tish B'Chol.
Amen. You may be seated and let us turn to page 83 for Ashrei.
Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Oja Hallelujah, Oja Hallelujah. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Oja Hallelujah, Oja Hallelujah. Ashrei Yoshvei
Yoshvei.
Beitecha, Oja Hallelujah, Oja Hallelujah. Ashrei Shvitecha Delucha Selah, Ashrei Hallelujah, Tilaladabi.
We continue on page 106 with Hamelech. Amelech Yoshev al Kisei Ram Benisa Shochein ad Maron V'kadosh Shemo V'katu Rananim Tzedikim Baronai Yirshim Neba Tehila V'fi Sharim Teramam Uterei Tzedikim Tebarach V'ilshon Chasadim Tekadash V'ker Kadoshim Titalal Makalot Rovot and Chavi Israel.
Shechein chovat kol yitzrim. Lefanech Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu. L'hodot le'elel l'shpech l'va'er. L'remain l'hader l'varek le'el kales. Al kol divrei shiro p'tish b'kot. David ben Yishai avdeka meshikecha. Ishtabach shimcha l'ad malkeinu. V'kovado mi'ataviad olam baruch atah Adonai. El melech b'tish b'kod. El ha'adot hadon niflaot. Avokeh b'shirei zimra. Melech elchei ha'olamim.
Amen.
Yikadav yikadash merabah.
Amen.
Yom hadivrak hertev yom likbakute. B'chai kon v'yom akon. B'chai etakol Israel. Agalav izman kariv yemu amen.
Amen.
Yehesh merab amavurak le'olam ole'am maya. Yet barak vish tabak vi ba'av v'yamam v'yanaseh. Yet adav yet alev yet alash made a kudusha brichu. Leila leila mikol b'katav shirata. Tush b'katav v'nechamata. Dami rambi yamavi yemu amen.
Amen. Please rise for the Baruch Hu on page 108.
Baruch et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hapokeh lanu sharei rachamim ume'er ha'enei hamchachim l'slichato. Otzor uvrei choshek osei shalom uvrei atakol.
Please be
Orlam
seated.
b'etzel hayim arod mapam b'mavehi.
We continue on page 114, towards the bottom of the page.
Or Kadash, Shal Tzion Ta'ir, 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 Ben Iske Kulanu Meira Leoro, Ben Iske Kulanu Meira Leoro. Baruch Adonai Yotzer Moro.
Amen.
Avarabav Tanhu Adonai Eloheinu Em Lagado Lavatera Kamalta Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Bavor Avotenu Shebaku Becha Avinu Malkeinu Bitlam Dechu Kechayim Kein Techanenu Tamdenu Avinu Ha'av Harachaman Amrachem Rachem Aleinu V'tem b'libeinu lehavinu lashmi lishmoa lilmod lilamei lishmor v'lasod ulkayem ekol divrei Talmud Torah takab'ahava v'ha'erinenu v'toratecha v'dabek b'beinu v'mitzvotecha v'yakei levavenu Yahava uyira et shemecha v'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed lo nevosh le'olam va'ed ki v'shem kadshecha agadol v'hanora bataknu nagila v'nismecha Nagilav nesmecha v'shuatecha v'havienu l'shalom v'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu komemiyut le'atzenu. Ki el poel Yeshuotata, uvanu bechata mikolam bilashon, ekerabtanu l'shimcha agado, sela, sela, sela be'emet, lehodot lecha, uyachedcha, uyachedcha b'yahava. Baruch atah Adonai, Avokei b'amo Yisrael, b'yahava.
Amen.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'kol levacha u'kol nafshecha u'kol meodecha v'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'tinatam lefanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha v'vetecha uv'lechtecha v'derech u'shaltecha u'kumecha Ukshatam liot al yadecha, v'hayulitot afot beinenecha, uvtaktam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha.
If you listen to my commandments and do them, the rain that falls on your fields will also fall in your lives, enabling everything to grow. Your fields will be fruitful, your animals will be fruitful, and you will be fruitful in body and spirit. But if you turn away from my commandments, then you'll also turn away from my rain. You will no longer be aware of this blessing and its source, so that for you, the rain will no longer exist. You will be unable to enjoy fully the fruits of your fields or the fruits of your lives. So listen to my commandments. Be mindful of my blessings and inherit the promises I made to your ancestors of fields rich with my bounty, of lives rich with my presence. We continue with the prayer for the blessing of Tzitzit on page 118.
Yomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, v'ata alehem, yesu lehem tzitzit. Al kamkei bigbotem the dorotam, not nuhu al tzitzit, al kanaf tatil tchelet, v'hayalachem litzitzit, uritem oto, uzatem mikol mitzvot Adonai, v'asitem otam, v'lo taturu, acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem, asher tem zonim acharechem, L'man tiskuru v'asitem b'kol mitzvotai, v'tem kadoshim le'elochem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher chetiechem mi'eretz Mitzrayim, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Where does Israel get the courage, the chutzpah, to go on believing in redemption in a world that knows mass hunger, political exile, and war? How can Jews testify to hope and human value when they have been continuously persecuted, hated, expelled, destroyed? Out of the memories of the Exodus, the voice that redeems us comes from within. Said Rabbi Eliezer Hamadai, consider the courage of Israel. When Moses said to the people in Egypt, arise and go forth, they did not ask, how can we go into the wilderness with no sustenance for the way? They had faith and went forward. The voice that lifts up the lowly, upholds the exhausted, and tells us to put one foot in front of the other, sometimes it comes from within. Remember the stories of slavery, and you will never stop working for freedom. Remember their fear at the edge of the sea, and self-doubt will never defeat you. Remember when desperation turned to celebration, and you will never let go of help. Remember the words of Baal Shem Tov, forgetfulness leads to exile. Remembrance is the secret of redemption. We continue at the bottom of page 120 with Tilat El Elyon.
Dilo Leo Yom Berkum Barak Moshavni Israel Kadosh Rabbisim Karabav Yemrukulam Bichamolcha Elim Adonai Bichamolcha Nedaber Kodesh No Ratehila Osei Vele Shira Chadesh Vashipkul Golim L'Simchat Otzvat Hayam Yechad Kulam Hudu V'Yamru Adonai Yimlach Le'olam Va'ed So Yisrael Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael Uvdei Kedumecha Yehuda Ve'Yisrael Go Aleinu Adonai Tzavaot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen. We continue on page 440 with the congregational Amidah. Please rise. Page 440.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanorah El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol V'Zocher Chastei Avot Umevi Goel Fnei Bneihem L'man Shemo B'Yahava Mihisod Hakamim Uvonim Umilemed Da'at Mevinim After Kafi Between Love Takanunim Lechalod Uchanein B'nei Melech Olei Rachamim Ohev Asalech Lavonim.
We continue on page 442.
Zakrenu Lechayim Melech Hafetz B'Chayim Ekadvenu B'Sefer HaChayim Mancha Elohim Chayim Melech Ozer Mashiach Magen Baruch Atah
Baruch
Adonai
Shalom.
Agin Avraham Uvkeit Sarah
Amen.
Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai V'chayei mitimata Rav Loshia Mechakel Chai Bechesed Mechayei Meiti Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishene Afar Michamocha Agurot Umidom Melach Melech Memit Umechaye Umatzmiach Yeshua Michamocha Avrachamim Zoketz Rav L'chaim b'rachamim, v'ne'eman, atah l'chayot metim, Baruch atah
Baruch
Adonai,
Shema.
Mekayei hametim.
Amen.
Yihim lokananai li'olam, ahayetzion l'dor v'dor, hallelujah. Yata kadosh yoshev tehilot Yisrael.
We continue on page 446.
Naharitzecha v'nakdishecha kitzotzi hatzarfei kodesh hamakdishim shimcha b'kodesh kakatu v'yanaviyaka v'kara al ze v'yamar kadosh 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 Adonai Tzivaot, Malok kol haaretz kivodo. Kivodo male male olam, kivodo male olam. Kivodo male male olam, kivodo male olam. Kivodo, kivodo male olam, v'shavta shoalim zelazeh, ayem mikol kivodo, v'shavta shoalim zelazeh, ayem mikol kivodo, lamatam baruch yameru, baruch kivod Adonai mikomo. Bimkomo, hu yifen berachamim, beyacham am yakadim shemo, erev v'voker, ekol yom tamid, hamayim b'yava, shema omrim, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, Behu Yashmienu B'rachamav, Behu Yashmienu B'rachamav, Sheni, Le'nei Kol Chai, Yot Lechem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohim, Adir Adirenu Adonai Adonenu Ma'adir Shim Kol Aretz, V'haya Adonai L'melech Kol Aretz, Yomahu Yeh Adonai Echad Ishmo Echad, U'derei Kachakal Katuv Le'mor, Yimloch Adonai Le'olam, Elohai Etzion, L'dor V'ador, Hallelujah. L'dor V'ador, Natkim Gad Lacha, U'netzach Netzachim Kedushato Nakdish, V'shikakal Elohinu Mipilu Lo Yemush Le'olam Va'ed, Yom Elokadol V'kadosh Atah.
You may be seated. We continue at the bottom of the page.
Kadosh Atav Rosh Mecha V'Ein Elohim Beladeka Kakatu Yiba Adonai Tzavaot B'Mishpat Ha'el Hakadosh Nikdash B'Tzdaka Baruch Atah Adonai HaMelech HaKadosh.
Amen. We continue in the middle of page 450.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Ya'alev Yavohu V'Yagea V'Yira'eh V'Yiratzeh V'Yishama V'Yipaked V'Yizaker Zikronenu V'Yigdonenu Zikron Avotenu V'Zikron Mashiach ben David Abdecha Zikron Yerushalayim Yokachecha Zikron Kalamcha B'Yisrael L'Fanecha L'Vleita L'Tova U'Cheinu Chesed Rachamim U'Chaim Shalom Yom HaKippurim Hazeh Zachrenu Adonai Eloheinu Bolatova.
Amen.
V'agdeinu V'olavraka.
Amen.
V'hoshienu V'olechayim.
Amen.
U'vidbar Yeshua Rakamim. U'sv'chanenu V'rachem Aleinu. V'hoshienu Ki Alecha Enenu. Ki Omelech Hanun. Baruchum Ata.
We continue with volume of page 452.
El Melchoshev al Kisei Rachamim, Midnachei Chasidut Mohel Avanot Amo, Ma Virishon Rishon, Ma Bam Mechila Lachataim, Uslicha Lefochim, Otzet Tzedakot Im Kol Basar Beruach, Velo Karatam Tikmo, El Charita Lanu Lemot Shalosh Esrei, Zekar Lanu Hayom Baruch Shalosh Esrei, Kadata Lanun Mikedim V'Kein Katu, Ayer Adonai ba'navi yitzei imusham, Yikra v'shem Adonai. V'ya'avor Adonai panav v'yikra, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'chanun, Erech apayim, V'rav chesed ve'emet, Notze chesed la'alafim, Nose avon v'afesha, V'chata'a v'nakeh, V'solakta levanenu, Ukatatenu ukatanu. Salak lanu avinu kikatanu, makalanu malkenu kipashanu. Yeta Adonai tov salak, rav chesed kol karecha. Al nata shevalenu, vateda asher nachanu asher katanu. Katanu tzurenu, salak lanu yotzrenu.
Page 456, please rise.
Shema kolenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Husrachem aleinu, Rekabel barachamim, Uvratzon et tefilatenu. Hashvenu Adonai lecha, Neshuva chadesh amenu kakedem. Al tashlichenu milfanecha, veruach hachecha, al tichach mimenu. Al tashlichenu lietzikna, ki klos kolkenu, al tazvenu. Al tazvenu Adonai Eloheinu, al tichach mimenu, Ase imanu olatova veru son enu bevoshu Adonai azotanu v'nichamtanu amirenu azena Adonai pigna hagigenu iu l'ratzon imrufinu again libenu l'fanega Adonai tzerenu v'goalenu gilacha Adonai hochanu ata tane Adonai Eloheinu.
We continue on page 458. You may be seated.
Eloheinu, Elohevotenu, Salak lanu, Mekal lanu, Kaper lanu, Ki anu amecha, Yata Eloheinu, Anu vanecha, Yata avinu, Anu avadecha, Yata Adonenu, Anu kahalecha, Yata chelkenu, Anu nechalatecha, Yata goralenu, Anu zonecha, Yata roenu, Anu karmecha, Yata notrenu, Anu Ulatecha Viata Yotzreinu Anu Rayatecha Viata Dodenu Anu Segulatecha Viata Krovenu Anu Amecha Viata Mokenu Anu Ma'amirecha Yata Mamirenu. Anu azifanim biatarakavakanun, anu kaseo ref yata erakapayim, anu malay avon biata malay rakamim, anu yamhenu katsel over, yata u ushnoteka lo yitamu.
I am in exile. I am in exile from the source of my true self. I look and I can't find me. I want to go back. I don't know how to get there. They tell me Shuvah is the answer. Return to friends, community, oneness. But I am lost. I don't know the path. I am in exile from my partner in holy conversation. I talk, but I am not heard. I want to speak, but I don't know what to say. They tell me tefillah is the answer. Pray with friends, community, oneness. But I am lost. I don't know the ritual. I am in exile from the unfair pain suffered by so many others. I can only feel my own needs. I want to help, but I don't know what to do. They tell me tzedakah is the answer. Serve your friends, community, oneness. But I am lost. I don't know the next step. Every Yom Kippur, I am told, Shuvah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah restore us to our place. Shuvah, when we return to our true selves. Tefillah, when we stop time in holy conversation. Tzedakah, when we transcend self. I hope that that is true. Blessed oneness, I am looking for guidance. Where do I walk? What do I say? What do I do? I am not sure I believe the answers. Should I trust the ones who counsel me? Shema, they say. Listen, you are forgiven. You are loved. Blessed holy wholeness, suggesting a home. I hope that I am forgiven. I hope that I am loved. By Tricia Arlen. Please rise to the Vidui on page 460.
Ashamnu, Bagadu, Gazalnu, Dibanu Dofi, Behevinu, Behishanu, Zadnu, Kamasnu, Tefanu Shaker, Yahatsnu Ra, Kizavnu, Lotsnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Sararnu, Alinu, Pashanu, Sararnu, Kishinu Oref, Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Ta'inu, Titanu.
Please remain standing and turn to page 464 for the Al-Khait.
Okay, Chakatana Livanaka, Baona Suratson, the okay, Chakatana Livanaka, Believe Da'at. Okay, Chakatana Livanaka, but Turat Sivatayim, be okay, Chakatana Livanaka, be Tsarhara, Biyal Kulam, Eloha Salichot, Salaglanu, Kalanu, Taper Lahanu. Okay, chakatana lefanecha, bechachat kazav, Yalkei chakatana lefanecha, biletzon. Yalkei chakatana lefanecha, betshuvat shav, Yalkei chakatana lefanecha, betsumat yad, Yal kulam, Eloha salichot, Salach lanu mechal lanu, Kaper lanu.
You may be seated, and we continue on page 470.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Barakenu B'Avraham Hamsaleza B'Torah Hakaduva Oyedei Moshe Avdecha Hamurat Mipi Aaron Uvnav Kohanim Am Kadosheka Ka'amur Yivarechecha Adonai V'Yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai Panav Elecha V'Echunecha Yisa Adonai Panav Elecha V'Yisei Lecha Shalom.
Amen.
Sim shalom, tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael amecha, v'archeinu avinu kolanu kechad v'yor panecha, ki v'yor panecha, natatad lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torah chayim v'ahavat chesed, v'tzedakah uvracha v'rachamim, v'chayim v'shalom, v'tov beinecha, v'red em kol Yisrael, v'kol eit uvka'asha b'shlomecha. Sefer Chaim v'racha v'shalom u'panasa tova. Sefer Chaim v'racha v'shalom u'panasa tova. Nizaker v'nikatev, nizaker v'nikatev lefanecha. Anachnu v'kolmcha beit Yisrael. L'chaim, l'chaim tovim, l'chaim, l'chaim tovim, l'chaim tovim, u'l'shalom. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom.
Amen. We rise to the Avinu Malkeinu on page 472.
Avinu Malkeinu chatanu lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu chatanu lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu ein lanu melech el ata.
Avinu Malkeinu ein lanu melech elata.
Avinu Malkeinu saimanu l'man shemecha.
Avinu Malkeinu aseimanu l'man shemecha.
Avinu Malkeinu chadesh aleinu shana tova.
Avinu Malkeinu chadesh aleinu shana tova.
Avinu Malkeinu hazireinu b'tshuva shalem lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu chazreinu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu shalakafu l'shlem l'chalei amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu shlach rufa shlema l'cholei amecha.
Avinu Malkeinu zakreinu b'zkayon tov lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu zachreinu b'zakaron l'tov lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu kadveinu b'sefer chaim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of happiness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kadvenu B'Sefer Zikalalach B'Shua.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of deliverance.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kadvenu B'Sefer Pasam B'Kakala.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of prosperity.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kadvenu B'Sefer Zikayot.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of merit.
Avinu Malkeinu, Kadvenu B'Sefer Zikila Mikila.
Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of forgiveness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Aselaman Ka'im Lo Lamanenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake if not for ours.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vanenu, Ki Ein Banu Masim. Akse Imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed, Ehoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu Vanenu, Yehem Banu Asim. Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, Ehoshienu. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide. Hide, 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 hide.
You may be seated, and we continue with the Kaddish Shalem on page 476.
Yitkadav, Yitkadav, Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Beyamad Rakirte, Viamlich Malkute, Kai Kondu Viomekon, Ukaeda Kobe Israel, Ba'agila Ubisman Kari, Vimru, Amen. Ejre Rabba Mevorach, Yolam Alome, Yomaya, Yitparak Vishtabach, Yitpa'ar Vitramam, Yitnase Viethadar Vietdalel Vietdalal, Made Kudasha, Made Kudasha, Riku, Eila, Eila, Kobekata Veshirata, Dushbakata, Venechamata, Damirambia Mavimru.
Amen.
Titkabel, slow to kon, va to kon, de kol Yisrael, vadamuvahon, dibishmaya, v'yimru, v'yimru, amen. Eish lama rava, v'yin shemaya, chayim elinu, v'yalko Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. Ose shalom bimroma, yase shalom, Aleinu ve'al Yisrael, Yimru, Yimru, Amen.
We continue with the Torah reading on page 480. Please rise.
Yashkoach, Aaron. Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai v'ein k'ma'asecha Malchutecha malchut kol olamim Umemshaltecha bechol dor v'hador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai yimloch Liolam avoid Adonai oz liamo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim, heitiv avirtzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Ki v'cha levad batachnu, melech el ram v'nisa, Adon olamim. Vayehi binso Aharon, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, V'yafutzu oivecha, V'yanusu misanecha, mipanecha, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Udevar Adonai Mirushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Liamo Yisrael Bikdushato. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha, V'Chata v'Nakei. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha, V'chata v'nakei. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha, V'chata v'nakei. Yehiyu l'ratzon, imrei fi v'hegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri v'goali. V'ani tefilati, tefilati. Lecha Adonai et ratzon. Elohim berav chastecha. Aneni, aneni, bemet yishecha. Vani tefilati, tefilati, lecha Adonai et ratzon. Elohim berav chastecha. Aneni, Aneni bemet yishecha. Vani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berav chastecha Aneni bemet yishecha.
We continue on page 484.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'Norah Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'Norah Shemo.
Gadlul Adonai iti, uneromema shemo yachdav.
The Torah reading that we are about to read is further explicated in this afternoon's Avodah service, so I am not going to give it a long introduction. But I do want people to think about the value and role and dangers of scapegoating, because the idea of placing one's sins upon a goat and sending it out into the wilderness is very much the foundation for how people place the blame for their own deeds and behaviors today on the backs of other groups of people who might be seen as different from them, and therefore they scapegoat them for their own troubles and concerns. And in today's environment, we need to think about how each one of us might project our own failings onto the backs of other people and say that they are the cause, when we know that that is not true, in the same way that the innocent goat was not the cause of all the troubles of the Israelites, all the sins of the Israelites, even though that goat was sent out into the wilderness. So I encourage you to follow along as we chant the Torah reading today.
V'yazor v'yegemi shilachachim bo v'ma'amein ha'kol v'god Eloheinu nukolot Torah kohen karav yamhod rachmiel ben hamin hakohen baruch shantam t'lamo Yisrael b'dushato yetem ha'bekim adonai Elokechem chaim kulchem ayom.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaBaruch. Adonai HaBaruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Speak. Go ahead.
Isn't somebody? Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amim v'nosalonu es toraso. Baruch Atah Adonai nosei haTorah.
Amen.
וידבר אדוני אל משה אחרי מות שני בני אהרון וקרבתם לפני אדוני וימותו ויאמר אדוני אל משה דבר אל אהרון אחיך ואל יבוא בכל עת אל הקודש מבית הפרוכת על פני הכפורת אשר על אהרון ולא ימות כי בענן יראה על הכפורת בזאת יבוא אהרון אל הקודש בפר בן בקר לחטאת ואיל לעולה.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher Nosan Lono Taurus MS V'chaye Olam Notav B'Scholcheno Baruch Atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen. Tamod Zaralayabat Hanabela Behuda Halevi.
Baruch Hu es Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'nasan Lanu Es Toraso. Baruch Atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ולקח את שני השעירים והעמיד אותם לפני אדוני פתח אוהל מועד ונתן אהרון על שני השעירים גורלות גורל אחד לאדוני וגורל אחד לעזאזל והקריב אהרון את השעיר אשר עלה עליו הגורל לאדוני ועשהו חטאת השעיר אשר עלה עליו הגורל לעזאזל יעמד חי לפני אדוני לכפר עליו ושלח אותו לעזאזל המדברה והקריב אהרון את פר החטאת אשר לו וכיפר בידו ועד ביתו ושחט את פר החטאת אשר לו.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher nasan lanu Toras emes v'chaye olam nota b'sochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen. Yamod Mordechai ben Yosef Shlishi.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaBarach. Baruch
Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'nasan Lanu et Torto. Baruch Atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen. Amen. ולקח מלוא המחתה ואכלי אש מעל המזבח מלפני אדוני ומלוא חפניו כתרת סמים דקה והביא מבית לפרוכת ונתן את הקטורת על האש לפני אדוני וכיסה ענן הקטורת את הכפורת אשר על העדות ולא ימות. לקח מדם הפר והיזה באצבעו על פני הכפורת קדמה ולפני הכפורת יזה 7 פעמים מן הדם באצבעו ושחט את שעיר החטאת אשר לעם והביא את דמו אל מבית לפרוכת ועשה את דמו כאשר עשה לדם הפר והיזה אותו על הכפורת ולפני הכפורת וכיפר הקודש מטומאות בני ישראל ומפשעיכם לכל חטאותם וכן יעשה לאוהל מועד השוכן איתם בתוך טומאותם וכל אדם לא יהיה באוהל מועד בבואו לכפר בקודש עד צאתו וכיפר בעד ובעד ביתו ובעד כל קהל ישראל.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chaye Olam Nota B'Sochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen. Yamdu Eliyahu ben Asholev and Deborah bat Mendel Revi'i.
That was pretty good.
Baruch Adonai habarach le'olam v'oed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher borcha bonu mikol ha'amim.
V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Eddie and Debbie Sadea.
Hamizbeach asher lifnei Adonai v'chiper alav v'lakach midam hapar u'midam ha'sa'ir v'natan al kanot hamizbeach saviv v'hiza alav min hadam be'etzba'o sheva pe'amim v'taru v'kidshaho metumot b'nei Yisrael v'chila mechaper et hakodesh v'et ohel mo'ed v'et hamizbeach v'kriv et hasa'ir hechai v'samach Aharon et shtei yadav al rosh hasa'ir hechai v'hitvada alav et kol avonot b'nei Yisrael v'et kol pishihem l'chol chatotam v'natan otam al rosh hasa'ir v'shilach biad ish iti hamidbarah v'nasa hasa'ir alav et kol avonotam el eretz gizera v'shilach et hasa'ir b'midbar uva Aharon el ohel moed uvashat et bigdei habad asher lavash b'vo'o el hakodesh v'chinam sham v'rachatz et basaru b'mayim b'makom kodesh v'lavash et bigadav v'yot yatsa v'yasa et oloto v'et olat ha'am v'chiper ba'ado uvad ha'am.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamhod Yaakov ben Shmuel Chamishi.
Baruch es Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amim v'nasan lanu es Toraso. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. V'eit chelev hachatat yaktir hamizbecha. V'hamshalech et hasa'ir la'azazel yichabes v'gadav v'rachatz et basaru b'mayim. V'achrein ken yavo el hamachaneh. V'eit par hachatat v'et sa'ir hachatat. Asher chova et damam lichaper b'kodesh yotzi el michutz lamachaneh v'safru va'esh et oratam v'et basaram v'et pirsham v'hasaref otam yichabes bigadav v'rachatz et basaru b'mayim v'achrei yavo el hamachaneh V'hai ta lachem lechukat olam v'chodesh hashvi'i v'asor lechodesh ta'anu et nafshotechem v'chol malacha lo ta'asu ha'ezrach v'hager hagar b'tochachem ki v'yom hazeh Yichaper aleihem letaher etchem mikol chatotechem livnei Adonai tidaru.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam tzolkenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamod Harav Hillel David ben Harav Moshe Shishi.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamavorach. Baruch Adonai Hamavorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Shabbaton hilachem v'nitem et nafshotechem chukat olam. V'chiper hakohen asher yimshach oto v'asher yimale et yado l'chahen tachat aviv v'lavash et bigdei abad, bigdei hakodesh, v'chiper et mikdash hakodesh, v'et ohel moed, v'et hamizbeach yechaper, v'yal hakohanim, v'yal kol hamakahal yechaper, v'et hazot lachem, Chukat olam lechaper al b'nai Yisrael mikol chatotam achat bashana vayas ka'asher tzivu Adonai et Moshe. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
We're about to say the prayer, the Misha Berach, for those who are ill in the community. If you have a name of somebody for whom you would like the prayer to be said, please unmute yourself and say the name at the proper time. Misha Berach Avotenu Vimotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarif Karachev Alea Hu Yivarech Et Cholim.
Marie Finger, Selma Late, Aline Sugarman, Larry Berger. Edna Glass and David White.
Papa Catstein.
Hank Saunders.
Amy Rubin Harris. Elliot Spotsby.
Dennis Perkins.
Robert Willig.
Richard Schwartz.
Rachel Bat Eliezer Veyeta.
Eliezer Yitzchak Ben Israel Mata.
Vasily Sherbel and Kurt DeGroat.
Richard Ajamobi.
Yaakov ben Sevilla. Ve'et HaKol HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem Lachilam U'Rifotam U'Chasikatam U'Lachaziotam Yishlach Lahem Meirav Refuah Rufat Shlema Min Hashemayim Rufat HaNefesh Rufat HaGuf Hashta B'Lazman Kariv B'no Mahar Amen. Misheberach Avotenu Makor habracha leimotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Howard?
Yes.
Patsy Kaddish?
Yiskadal v'yiskadal shemei rabba. Zama devrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon u'v'yamechon. U'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala u'bizman kariv. V'yimeru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach. Le'olam and me'omaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitvav v'yitraman v'yitnaseh v'yithadav v'yithalev v'yithalal shemei kodesha b'rechu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran b'alma v'yimeru amen.
Yamot Zviven Rachmiel Maftir.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bacha Banu Mikol Hamim V'Nasan Lanu et Toraso. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Uvasar lachodesh hashvi'i hazeh mikra kodesh yeh lachem v'nitem et nafshotechem kol malacha lo tasu v'kravtem olal Adonai reach nichoach par ben bakar Echad ayel echad kibasim b'nei shana shiva temimim yiyu lachem umin chatam solet lula bashamen shlosha esronim lapar shnei esronim la'ayel ha'echad Isaron Lakeves ha'echad l'shivat ha'kevasim se'irizim echad chatat milvad chatat ha'kippurim ve'olat ha'tamid umin chata v'nizkehem.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Nasan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'zochenu Baruch Ata Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen.
The Haftarah comes from Isaiah, and in spite of the fact that today we are spending all this time to fast and to beat our breasts and to do all that, Isaiah talks to us and calls out to us that it is not these ritual aspects of how to atone, but rather through our behavior, through our ethical actions that will make the difference and that will really bring redemption to the world. So I ask you to follow along on page 498 as how we chant the Haftarah.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar B'nviim Tovim Ratzav Vidrehem Hanemerim Be'emet Baruch Ata Adonai Abocher B'Torah U'Moshe Avdo U'Yisrael Amo U'V'nviei Ha'emet V'Tzedek Yomar Tolu Salu Panu Daharech Irimu Mikshol Miderech Ami Ki Choamar Rambanisa Shochenad Bekadosh Shemo Marum Bekadosh Eshkon Vietaka Ushval Ruach L'chachayot Ruach Shefalim L'chachayot Lev Nirkayim Ki lo la mariv velo la netzach exof ki ruach milfanai atov unshamod ani asiti Bavon bitzo, Ketzachti vakehu, Hastir ve'eksof, Vayelech shovav, Baderech libo, Derachav rayiti, V'arpaehu, Vanchehu, V'ashalem, Nechumim, Lo, V'lavelav, Borei, Nifsafatayim, Shalom, Shalom, L'rachok, L'karov, Amar Adonai, Ufativ, V'harshaim, Kayam Nehigrash, Ki Hashket Lo Yuchal, Vigroshu Memav, Refesh Vativ, Ein Shalom, Amar Elohai, Larshaim, Karav agron al tachzok, Kashofar harem kolecha, V'haged liami pisham, Ove Yaakov chatotam, Bosi yom yom yidrashun, V'das deracha yechpatun, Kagoy asher tzedakasa, Umishpat Elohav lo azav, Yishaluni mishpatei tzedek, Kiravat Elohim yechpatzun. Lama tzamnu v'lo ra'ita, Ininu nafshenu v'lo teheda, Chen bayom tzomchem timtzu chefetz, V'chol atzvechem tingosu. Chen lariv u'matzah tatzumu, V'hakot ba'egrof resha, Lo tatzumu chayom, Lashmiya b'marom kolchem, Hachazeh yihiyeh, Tzom evcharehu, Yom anod adam nafsho, Alachov kagmon rosho, V'sak ve'efer yatzia, Alazeh tikratzom, Vayom ratzon l'Adonai, Halo zeh tzom chavarehu, Pateach hartzubot resha, Hater agodot mota, V'shalach rututzim chavshim, V'chol mota tanakteku. Halo faros l're'ev lachmecha, V'aniim merudim tavi vayit, Ki tireh oram b'chisito, Umibsarcha lo titalam. Az yibaka kashacha orecha, Baruchatcha mehirat titzmach, V'halach lefanecha sidkecha, Kevod Adonai yasvecha. Az tikra Adonai v'Adonai ya'aneh, Toshava v'omar hineni, Im tasir mitochacha mota, Shalach etzba v'daber aven. V'tafek l're'ev nafshecha, V'nefesh na'ana tasbiya, V'zarach b'choshech orecha, V'afeletcha k'taharayim, V'nachach Adonai tamid, V'hisbiya b'sachzachot nafshecha, V'atzmotecha, Yachalis v'hayita kagan raveh, Uchmotza mayim, Asher lo yazvu meimav, Uvanu memcha charvaot olam, Mosdei dovador tekomim, V'kora lacha godeh peret, Moshaveh natevot l'shavet. Im tashib mishibat raglecha, Azot haftecha, Bayom kahachi, V'karata l'shabat oneg. Lekadosh Adonai mechubad, V'chibato me'asot derachecha, Memso chavtzecha, V'daber davar. Az tedanag al Adonai, V'hirkav kavticha el b'matei aharet, V'achalticha Nachalat Yaakov avicha, Ki pi Adonai diber. Baruch at Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sor k'holamim, tzadik b'chol hadarot, ha'el ha'ne'eman homev Yosef, המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודברך עד מברך, אחור לא ישוב ריקם, כי המלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו.
אמן.
רחם על ציון כי בית חיינו, לבית נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני, משמח ציון בבניך.
אמן.
שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ומלכות בית דוד משיחך, במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כיסו לא ישב זר ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קדשך נשפט לו, שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן דוד. על התורה ועל עבודה ועל המים ועל יום הכיפורים הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנחה וסליחה ולכפרה לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד, ובחר אמת וקיים לעד, ברוך אתה אדוני. מלך מוחל וסולח עוונותינו, ולעוונות דמו בית ישראל, ומעביר את שמותינו בכל שנה ושנה, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש השבת, ישראל ביום הכיפורים.
Amen. We've come now to Yisker. So if it is your tradition, what I would do is just close the video, walk away. But please feel free also just to be able to sit and reflect on life and all of that. I'd like to share a story with you. I was struggling as to what to say this year, partly because it feels too soon to talk for a personal level. And Honey Pasek sent me the story thinking that I might find it meaningful. And so I'm going to share this story with you. When I was a young boy, my father had one of the first telephones in our neighborhood. I remember the polished old case fastened to the wall, the shiny receiver hung on the side of the box. I was too little to reach the telephone, but used to listen with fascination when my mother talked to it. Then I discovered that somewhere inside the wonderful device lived an amazing person. Her name was Information Please, and there was nothing she did not know. Information Please could supply anyone's number and the correct time. My personal experience came with a genie in a bottle, came one day while my mother was visiting a neighbor. Amusing myself at the tool bench in the basement, I whacked my finger with a hammer. The pain was terrible, but there seemed no point in crying because there was no one home to give me sympathy. I walked around the house, sucking my throbbing finger, finally arriving at the stairway. The telephone! Quickly, I ran for the footstool in the parlor and dragged it to the landing. Climbing up, I unhooked the receiver in the parlor and held it to my ear. Information, please, I said into the mouthpiece just above my head. A click or two, and a small, clear voice spoke into my ear. Information. hurt my finger, I wailed into the phone. The tears came readily enough now that I had an audience. Isn't your mother home? Came the question. Nobody's home but me, I blubbered. Are you bleeding? The voice asked. No, I replied. I hit my finger with the hammer and it hurts. Can you open the ice box? She asked. I said I could. Then chip off a little bit of ice and hold it to your finger, said the voice. After that, I called information please for everything. I asked her for help with my geography, and she told me where Philadelphia was. Aaron's liking this a lot, by the way. She helped me with my math. She told me my pet chipmunk that I had caught in the park just the other day before would eat fruits and nuts. Then there was a time that Petey, our pet canary, died. I called information please and told her the sad story. She listened and then said things grown-ups say to soothe a child. But I was not consoled. I asked her, why is it that birds should sing so beautifully and bring joy to all families, only to end up as a heap of feathers on the bottom of a cage? She must have sensed my deep concern, for she said quietly, Wayne, always remember that there are other worlds to sing in. Somehow I felt better. Another day I was on the telephone. Information, please. Information, said the now familiar voice. How do I spell fix? I asked. All this took place in a small town in the Pacific Northwest. When I was 9 years old, we moved across the country to Boston. I missed my friend very much. Information, please, belonged in that old wooden box back home, and I somehow never thought of trying the shiny new phone that sat on the table in the hall. As I grew into my teens, the memories of those childhood conversations never really left me. Often in moments of doubt and perplexity, I would recall the serene sense of security I had then. I appreciated now how patient, understanding, and kind she was to have spent time on a little boy. A few years later, on my way west to college, my plane put down in Seattle. I had about half an hour or so between planes. I spent 15 minutes or so on the phone with my sister, who lived there now. Then, without thinking what I was doing, I dialed my hometown operator and said, information, please. Miraculously, I heard the small, clear voice I knew so well. Information. I hadn't planned this, but I heard myself saying, could you please tell me how to spell fix? There was a long pause. Then came the soft-spoken answer. I guess your finger must have healed by now. I laughed. So it's really you, I said. I wonder if you have any idea how much you meant to me during that time. I wonder, she said, if you know how much your call meant to me. I never had any children, and I used to look forward to your calls. I told her how often I had thought of her over the years, and I asked her if I could call her again when I came back to visit my sister. Please do, she said. Just ask for Sally. 3 minutes later, I was back in Seattle. A different voice answered, information. I asked for Sally. Are you a friend? She said. Yes, a very old friend, I answered. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, she said. Sally had been working part-time the last few years because she was sick. She died 5 weeks ago. Before I could hang up, she said, wait a minute. Did you say your name was Wayne? Yes, I answered. Well, Sally left a message for you. She wrote it down in case you called. Let me read it to you. The note said, tell him there are other worlds to sing in. He'll know what I mean. I thanked her and hung up. I knew what Sally meant. We continue with the Yizkor prayers on page 684.
Adonai ma'adam v'tedaehu ben enosh v'tichashrehu Adam lahevel dama yamav kitzel over Baboker yatzit v'chalaf la'erev yimolel v'yavesh tashev enosh adaka v'tomer shuvu b'nei adam shuva Adonai ad matai v'hinachem al avadecha.
Bubby Love by Deborah Hirsch Corman. Holding my granddaughter's hands, crunching through the leaves in the temple parking lot, I am 5 again, walking with Bubby to shul on Rosh Hashanah, crunching through the leaves on the side of the road, making memories, though I don't know it yet. Sitting close to Bubby in the sanctuary, I watch her finger with her special occasion ring, following the words in the prayer book as the Chazan sings, making memories, though I don't know it yet. And so many years later, I invite my young granddaughters to stand between me and the Torah, to watch my silver filigree yad point to the words as I chant from the Torah, making memories, though they don't know it yet. Leaving the synagogue, crunching through the leaves, Bubby is walking with me and with her great-grandchildren. Blessed are you, dear God, who created memories and Bubby love.
Shaviti Adonai lenegadi tamid. Shaviti Adonai lenegadi tamid. Protect me, Adonai. Stay by my side. Ki mimini kol emot, lachen samach libi, vayagel kivodi, af bisari yishkon lavetach.
comes from the Lord, creator of heaven and earth. My help comes from the Lord, creator of heaven and earth. From where will my help
The death of those we now remember left gaping holes in our lives, but we are grateful for the gift of their lives, and we are strengthened by the blessings which they left us, by precious memories which comfort and sustain us as we recall them this day. We will now take a few minutes for each one of you to remember privately your own losses. There are specific prayers on page 686 through page 689 for those of you who want to remember specific people and the roles that they played in your lives. we lovingly recall the members of our congregation who have passed away since we gathered in this sanctuary on last Yom Kippur. They have a special place in our hearts. We pray this day that all have sustained the loss of loved ones in the year gone by be granted strength, comfort, and strength. Exalted, compassionate God, comfort the bereaved families of this congregation. Help all of us to perpetuate the worthy values in the lives of those no longer with us, whose names we respectfully recall. Barbara Kaiser Barber, Linda Finstein, Grace Gauss, Lenny Landa, Rita A. Conley Orr, Joseph Roby, Patricia Welton Shute, Dr. J. Sorgman, Lillian Walensky Blumberg, Ina M. Zamansky Golb, Sheila Silva Hallett, Jack Lappin, Leona Rapson, Beatrice Letterman Solden, Marilyn Shapiro, Mildred Stern. May their memory always be for a blessing, and may God comfort them amongst all those who mourn. We continue with the Amalei Rachamim prayer on page 691. Please stand if you're not already doing so.
El Malei Rachamim Shocheina Bameromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Bimalot Kidoshim Utehorim Kizohar Harakia Mazhirim Et Nishmot Kol Leile Shehizkarnu Hayom Liviracha Shehalchu Leolamam Began Eden Tehei Menuchatam Anabal Harachamim Hastireim Beseter Kinafecha Leolamim Utziror Bitzror Hachayim Et Nishmotehem Adonai Hu Nachalatam V'yanuchu V'shalom Al Mishkevotehem V'nomar Amen.
Page 692.
Mizmor LeDavid Adonai Roi Lo Echsar Bihinot Deshe Yarbitzeni Al Mei Menuchot Yenahaleni Nafshi Yishovev Nafshi Yishovev.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He gives me repose in green meadows. He leads me beside the still waters to revive my spirit.
Yanecheni b'magle tzedek leman shemo.
He guides me on the right path, for that is his nature.
Gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi.
Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me.
Shivetecha umishanetecha, shivtecha umishantecha, hema yinachamuni.
Your staff and your rod comfort me.
Taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, taroch lefanai shulchan, neged sorirai.
You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes.
Dishanta vashemen roshi, Dishanta vashemen roshi, Dishanta vashemen roshi, kosi rivaya.
You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows.
Achtov v'chesed yirtifuni kol yemei chayai.
Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life.
Vishavti beveit Adonai, Vishavti beveit Adonai, liorech yamim.
And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Please turn to page 694. And if you'd like to unmute yourself so we can say Kaddish together, even though it might be a little bit messy, I think it's important for each of our voices to be heard. Yitgadal,
So, Ela, Mikol Bechata, Bishirata, Bishbechata, Mata, Ran, Bilma, Bimaru, Amen. Ehesh, Rabba, Shemaya,
turn back 512 to return the Torah to the ark.
Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav Shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayaharem keren liyamo, tila lechol chasidav, livnei Yisrael am kirovo, Hallelujah, hallelujah. Uvnecho yomar. Shuv Adonai Revato Yisrael.
Page 514.
Ki lekach tov natati lachem Torati al tazovu etz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar diracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashua Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu, Kekedem.
You may be seated. And now some words from our president.
I stand before you humble. I've learned that my talk on Rosh Hashanah may have been harsh and irritating. If you found it, I'm sorry. It was not my intent to upset you. Rather, it was my plea to call you to action. I was elected by a flood of ballots that I now think may have been fraudulent. And I have no court to appeal to. So here I stand before you. My call to you on that Rosh Hashanah morning was a plea to help me guide our congregation. Come with me on this journey. Guide me. Help me make this the congregation you and I want it to be. It has become clear to me that some of you did not like the future that I described. I did not like it either. I was elected to guide this ship. I need an entire staff of assistants to help me navigate our future. Won't you sign on for the voyage? Right now, most of you are crew members along for the ride. I understand that, and I assure you we need crew members, but we also need navigators to help plot our course, engineers to keep the ship running, activity directors to create programs to keep us occupied on our journey. Do not sit in your stateroom and curse the darkness. Come up on deck and help us find our way. When you hear the shofar's call tonight, think of it as a foghorn, warning that there are perils ahead and asking each of you to step up and help me guide our congregation and our voyage. Thank you.
Within Judaism, as with most institutions and organized groups, there is a dialectical tension between the universal and the particular. On a superficial level, it can clearly come across that we operate very much within a binary system, day and night, secular and holy, Israel and the rest of the world, kosher and treif, etc. But at the same time, the rabbis were very aware that while this simplistic formulation was an easy way to categorize our filter through which to see the world and our place in it, they also understood that a more nuanced approach is necessary. They comprehended the danger in such a stark formulation and in viewing one side as having more significance. This awareness and this need for a more balanced perspective is very evident in the prayers and structure of the High Holy Days. Avinu Malkeinu is one such example in which we are calling upon God, both as a distant sovereign that has absolute authority and as a parent who is immanent and compassionate. This theme is further accentuated in the Rosh Hashanah prayer that concludes each of the three special sections of Malchuyot, sovereignty, Zichronot, remembrance. We're going to start again because I just realized I was muted that whole time. So much for rehearsal. And I was doing so well, too. Take two. Within Judaism, as with most institutions and organized groups, there is a dialectical tension between the universal and the particular. On a superficial level, it can clearly come across that we operate very much within a binary system, day and night, secular and holy, Israel and the rest of the world, kosher and treif, etc. But at the same time, the rabbis were very aware that while this simplistic formulation was an easy way to categorize our filter through which to see the world and our place in it, they also understood that a more nuanced approach is necessary. They comprehended the danger in such a stark formulation and in viewing one side as having more significance. This awareness and this need for a more balanced perspective is very evident in the prayer structure of the High Holy Days. Avinu Malkeinu is one such example in which we are calling upon God, both as a distant sovereign that has absolute authority and as a parent who is immanent and compassionate. This theme is further illustrated in the Rosh Hashanah prayer that includes each of the three special sections of Malchuyot, sovereignty, Zichronot, remembrance, and Shofarot, redemption, found within the Musaf Amidah. Hayom Harat Olam. Today the world was born, but which Rabbi Gershon Cohen translates more poetically as today is pregnant with eternity. Beseeches God to be merciful and gracious to us, if as a sovereign and if as a parent. The choice of which Torah readings are read also highlights this tension. It is stated that the first of Tishrei, even though it is the 7th month of the calendar, is the birth of the world. But yet the readings highlight the birth of the Jewish people through the narratives of Abraham, Sarah, and the birth of Isaac, as opposed to reading about the creation of the world in the beginning chapters of Genesis. At the same time, the first month of the calendar year is Nisan, which is when we exited Egypt and began our spiritual and physical journey of becoming a distinct people with a unique relationship with God. Within Yom Kippur, we continue to struggle with finding balance between the universal and the particular. Our Torah reading focuses on the use of sacrifices as a way of seeking atonement, the particular process which is just for the Jewish people. And yet Isaiah, from which the Haftarah is taken, describes ethical activities that all people can and should be doing as a way of finding grace and forgiveness from God, the universal. And during the Mincha service of Yom Kippur, it is customary to chant the full book of Jonah, who was sent to the non-Jewish community in order to get them to repent. Within the Unatana Tokef prayer, we also see this tension move between the universal and the particular. At the beginning, it states, all the creatures of the world will pass by you. And then further down, it describes each one of us, one by one, passing before God in judgment. There's a constant shift and interplay between the universal and the particular, between individualism and communalism, and between transcendence and immanence. When applying these distinctions to group identity, we also find tension and a striving for balance. Not only has there been much discussion of what it means to be a Jew throughout the centuries, but rabbis and Jewish scholars have struggled to find the balance between maintaining group cohesion and societal interaction. How porous should the boundaries between groups be? How rigid does one maintain the social norms and rituals that help to differentiate one group from another? Put in Jewish terms, how do we find the way to balance maintaining our Jewish identity through observance and ritual practice, while also interacting and acknowledging the positive values of outside American culture? Should we be particular in our daily lives and seclude ourselves, thus running the danger of isolationism and not partaking of the values that could bring meaning to our lives? Or should we be more universal in our approach and run the risk of fraying the threads that keep the fabric of our Jewish identity strong? In the Talmud, we see discussions of the rabbis that speak to these dilemmas. And it is evident that they saw the danger in creating a system that is rigidly binary. Both in their time period as well as today, it can be dangerous to view the world through a lens that separates and creates an us versus them mentality. When one group views themselves as so superior to another group, there is the supposition and expectation that the only shared sense of identity and connection can come through the other taking on the attributes of the first group. This level of triumphalism is dangerous and can lead to fear. When we think that others are so different from ourselves that there are no shared values or aspects of our lives that can be shared, this can lead to a sense that we have to maintain our group identity, and there can be no connection, no interaction, and no sense of common purpose or shared humanity. Too often, the dominant group believes that the only blueprint for shared interaction is that the other group must subsume their own identity and adopt the values and terms of the dominant group. This can be viewed as being grounded in fear. Be totally like me, or I refuse to engage you in any way. There can be no sameness, no connection, unless you become more like me. And I apologize because I realized that my teleprompter has the wrong version. So I'm going to read it from my notes. Yeah, teleprompter's. Too often, when groups prioritize group identity over other values, it can lead to choices that in the long run don't help the group. For example, the mask debate that has raged on in this country. It is very clear that wearing a mask is not only the healthy choice, it is the ethical choice. However, it has become an issue of group identity, and when people prioritize the value of group cohesion over other values, people feel forced to side with their group affiliation in order to signal their difference, their protest, their particularism, to the detriment of their own and others' health. Maintaining difference just for the sake of difference is self-sabotaging. Unfortunately, when one group feels that they are under attack from another, their knee-jerk reaction is to become more rigid and to circle the wagons, so to speak. I am reminded of a scene in Blazing Saddles when the sheriff, played by Cleavon Little, is telling the story of how his family came to move out west. He describes a time when they were attacked by Native Americans. And since his wagon wasn't allowed into the other circle of wagons, they created their own one wagon circle. It was a great visual joke that brings home this image of group identity, creating a wall around itself when it feels threatened. Not only did the white travelers create a circle against the attacking Native Americans, but they excluded his family, who was not of their group, being Black. However, this dialectical tension between groups and group identity does not need to be an either or, but rather it can be a both and. When talking about American society, sociologists moved away from the metaphor of a melting pot to that of a stew. Each culture, each group brings a distinct flavor and texture to the mix and should not be blended to the extent that their individual and particular history, culture, and identities gets lost. We need to hold up sameness and difference together in a dialogue with each other. The particular should not triumph over the universal, and the universal should not erase and absorb what is particular. Both are alive and vital in the development and maintenance of identity. By working to honor both sameness and difference in identity, it allows us to be less afraid of what might be seen as perceived threats from others, whether it is internal within our Jewish community or whether it's connected to our relationships and understandings of other cultures and groups. When we are willing to listen and others know that they have been heard, without one group overcoming another or trying to absorb or erase the other, our group identity has the opportunity to become strengthened and improved through the commonality of our humanity. The particular and the universal, sameness and difference, is not a zero-sum game in which you're either different or the same. They do not need to be in competition with each other, so that if you relax your difference, your distinctiveness dissolves into sameness, or if you build metaphoric walls and rigidly maintain your distance and thus your difference, you lose the richness of learning new perspectives. Rather, sameness and difference are mutually constructing and mutually improving. When groups are in dialogue with each other, it provides opportunities for growth and for each group to realize both the full potential that is within it, as well as unique understandings that it can bring to society. When each group promises to listen to the other and at the same time acknowledge that they carry with them inherent biases and learned negative perceptions, it allows for open and healing discussions, which can result in building a society that allows for each individual to realize their full potential. By respecting what others have to offer and being open to the universal, we not only maintain pride in our identity and recognize the diversity can strengthen that identity, we also fashion a particularism that is full, substantive, and meaningful. We need to embrace and celebrate sameness and difference, and understand that they are the flip side of the same coin and not contradictory or in opposition to each other. By so doing, we create the very best sense of our shared common humanity that also acknowledges the distinct histories and dynamics of the particular communities and cultures that make up that humanity. And in this way, we honor each individual's uniqueness and singular contributions that each one of us has to offer to humanity and to each other. We continue with the Musaf service with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 518.
Yitgadal V'yitkadash Shemei Rabba Bi'alma Divrach Chirutei Bi'amlich Malchutei B'chayechonu V'yomechon Uvechaye Dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Uvizman Kariv V'yimeru Amen. Yeheshmei Rabba Mevarach Li'alam Lol Me'olam Haya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitale V'yithalal Shemei Dekudesha Birichu Li'ela ule'ela Mikol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiran Bi'alma V'yemeru Amen.
Here I am, poor in deeds, trembling in fear in front of the Holy One of Israel. Therefore I shall ask you, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, please make my assignment successful as I stand here seeking compassion for myself and for all those who sent me. I came here before you to plead on behalf of my people, your people, who sent me, although I'm hardly worthy of the task. Please do not condemn them for my faults or me for theirs. Accept my prayer as if it came from one blessed with a pleasant voice and a pleasant temper. Please turn our troubles and turmoil into gladness and joy. For it is you who mercifully listen to your people's prayer, We praise you, the one who hears our prayers. We continue on page 534 with the Amidah. Please rise if you are able.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher, Chastei Havot, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה. מיסוד חכמים ונבונים ומלמד דת מבינים. הבטחה פי בתפילה ובתחנונים לחלות ולחנן פני מלך מלכי רחמים מוחל וסולח לעוונים זכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכתבנו בספר החיים, וכתבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ושרה.
אמן.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים, אתה רב להושיע, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אב הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמנת לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים.
Amen. On Rosh Hashanah, it is written, on Yom Kippur, it is sealed, that this year people will live and die, some more gently than others, but amidst overwhelming forces, and nothing lives forever, and nothing goes unrecorded ever. Every deed counts. Everything you do matters. And we never know what act or word will leave an impression or tip the scale. So if not now, then when, of nature and humankind? We still write our own book of life, and our actions are the words in it. And the stages of our lives are the chapters. For the things we can change, there's shuvah, realignment. For the things we cannot change, there is tefillah, prayer. For the help we can give, there is tzedakah, justice. Together, let us write a beautiful book of life for the Holy One to read. Please turn to page 536 for the Unatana Tochach prayer, and if you can, please remain standing.
ובכן לך תעלה קדושה, כי אתה אלוהינו מלך מוכר וסולח. ונתן תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא ואיום. ובוא תינשא מלכותך, ויכון בחסד כיסאך, ותשב עליו באמת. ושופר גדול ייתקע, וכל דממה daka ishama. Birosh Hashana yikatevun, uviyom tzom kippur yechatemun. Birosh Hashana yikatevun, uviyom tzom kippur yechatemun. Kama yahavrun v'chama yibareun. Mi yechia umi yamut, mi v'kitzo mi lo v'kitzo, mi va'eshu mi v'mayim, mi v'cherev umi v'chaya, mi v'rav umi v'magefa b'tzama. Mi varash, umi v'magefa, mi v'chanika, umi v'askila, mi yanuach, umi yanua, mi yashket, umi yetoref, mi yishalev, umi yityaseh, mi Yani umi yasher mi yeshufal umi yarum birosh hashana yikatevun uviyom tzom kippur yechatemun uteshuva utefila Tzedaka mavirin et roa hagezera.
But penitence, prayer, and good deeds can annul the severity of the decree. We continue with Kedusha at the bottom of the page of 538.
Aseh leman shemecha v'kadesh et shimcha al makdishei shemecha bavur kevod shimcha hanaratz v'hanikdash kesod siach sarfei kodesh hamakdishim shimcha bakodesh darei malayim darei mata kakatuv al yad neviecha V'karazel ze v'yamar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzivaot Melech ol haaretz kivodo Malei olam Mishar tav shoalim זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים, ויחונם המייחדים שמו ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד פעמיים באהבה שמע אומרים שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, Hu Yashmienu, Berachamav Shenit, Liene Kol Chai, Liot Lachem Leelohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem. Adir Adirenu Adonai Adonenu Madir Shimcha Bechol Haaretz V'haya Adonai Lemelech Al Kol Haaretz Bayom Hahu Yi Adonai Echad U'Shemo Echad ובדברי קדשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גדלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה.
We continue with what is known as the Great Aleinu on page 550. I encourage people, especially since you don't need to be embarrassed because you are in the privacy of your own home, to be able to fully bow down, prostrate yourself, so that you truly can experience the unique feeling of showing humility before God. Page 550.
Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol latet Gedula liotzer bereshit shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot velo samanu kimishpechot adama shelo sam chelkeinu kahem וגורלנו ככל המונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha, V'chata v'nakei, v'salachta lavoneinu, ulchatateinu, unechaltanu.
We're at the bottom of page 552.
Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, mechalanu malkeinu ki fashanu, ki ata Adonai tov, v'salach v'rav chesed, lechol korecha.
Shema Kolenu. Hear our voice. Baruch atah Adonai shomei tefillah. Blessed is the one who hears our prayers. There is a teaching. Rabbi Eliezer said, always prepare your prayer rehearsing it, practicing it with your life. Then say it. Rabbi Abba said, Rabbi Eliezer's teaching is especially applicable to the prayers we say on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. What does it mean to live out your prayers with your life? If your prayers are full of praise for the sun, moon, and stars, you would pay attention to the nighttime sky. You'd work to preserve the atmosphere. You'd study astronomy, celebrate the new moon, and wear sunscreen. If you're thankful for health, you would do your part to preserve it or improve it. You would exercise, eat right, seek caregivers with the greatest wisdom. You would celebrate all the parts of your body that work well each day. If your request is peace, you would do your part to establish it in all the worlds you inhabit. If your prayer is forgiveness, you would resolve the lawnmower incident with your neighbor. You'd write a letter and forgive your family, your friends, your community, and your leaders for what they didn't do in the past year. And you would tell them what they must now do to make this world a healthier, just place. Shema Kolenu. Hear our prayers. It is a cry from our hearts, especially from the most vulnerable amongst us. May we return to you, to being us, to all that we are supposed to be and can be as individuals, as a community, as a country, and as a world community. For you we wait, O God. O Lord, will answer. We continue on page 574.
Ki anu amecha v'yata Eloheinu anu vanecha v'yata avinu yailai anu avadecha v'yata Adoneinu anu kehalecha v'yata chelkeinu yailai anu nachalatecha v'yata goraleinu Anu atzonecha v'yata ro'enu yailai anu charmecha v'yata notreinu anu fiulatecha v'yata yotrenu yailai anu rayatecha v'yata dodenu anu sigulatecha V'yata kroveinu yailai anu amecha v'yata malkeinu anu mamirecha v'ata mamireinu.
Please turn to page 577 and rise for the vidui.
Ya la 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 Hashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Tibarnu Dofi, Evinu, Vihirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker. Ya la 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 ya la la Yatsnu ra Kizavnu Latsnu Maradnu Niatsnu Sararnu Avinu Pashanu Sararnu Kishinu Oref Ya la 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 ya la Rashanu, Shichanu, Tianu, Ta'inu titanu.
A contemporary al-Khait. Al-Khait, for the sins we have sinned against you by holding grudges, and the sin we have sinned against you by nurturing resentments, for the sin we have sinned against you by thinking ill of others, and for the sin we have sinned against you by thinking ill of ourselves, for the sin we have sinned against you by giving up hope, and for the sin we have sinned against you by giving in to despair. V'al kulam Eloha slichot salach lanu machal lanu kaper lanu. Al-Khait, for the sin we have sinned against you by not wearing a mask, and for the sin we have sinned against you by not socially distancing, for the sin we have sinned against you by neglecting essential workers, and for the sin we have sinned against you by forgetting every soul is essential, for the sin we have sinned against you by caring less if it happens to them, and the sin we have sinned against you by turning away. V'al kulam Eloha slichot salach lanu machal lanu kaper lanu. Al-Khait, for the sin we have sinned against you by overlooking racism, and for the sin we have sinned against you by ignoring police violence, for the sin we have sinned against you by abdicating responsibility, and for the sin we have sinned against you by turning a blind eye to Black suffering, for the sin we have sinned against you by letting inequalities stand, and for the sin we have sinned against you by not using our power to help others. V'al kulam Eloha slichot salach lanu machal lanu kaper lanu. We continue on page 590. You may be seated.
Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu barcheinu v'bracha hameshuleshet b'Torah haketuva al yedei Moshe avdecha hamura mipi Aaron v'anav kohanim am kedoshecha kamur. Yevarech Adonai v'yishmerecha
Ein
yiratzon. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yechoneka. Ein yiratzon. Yisa Adonai panav elecha V'yasem lecha shalom. King Yiratzon. Sim shalom ba'olam tova uviracha chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha barchenu avinu Kulanu ke'echad bi'or panecha, ki bi'or panecha natata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu. Torat chayim v'ahavat chesed, u'tzedaka u'viracha v'rachamim v'chayim v'shalom v'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol eit u'v'chol shah b'shlomecha b'sefer chayim b'racha v'shalom ופרנסה טובה, בספר חיים, ברכה ושלום, ופרנסה טובה. ניזכר וניכתב לפניך, אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל, לחיים, לטובים ולשלום.
Please rise for Hayom on page 592.
היום תאמצנו, אמן. היום תברכנו,
אמן.
היום תגדלנו, אמן, אמן. היום תדרשנו לטובה, היום תכתבנו לחיים טובים.
אמן.
היום תקבל ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו.
אמן.
היום תשמע שוועתנו.
אמן.
היום תתמכנו בימין צדקך.
אמן.
היום תמחול ותסלח לכל עוונותינו. אמן, אמן. וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום יהיה לנו ולכל ישראל עד העולם. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
Amen. Kaddish Shalem on page 594.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך ירתה וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגאלה בזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה ולעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותנו ואותון דכל ישראל קדם אבוהון דבשמיא ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיא וחיים עלינו על כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ויאמרו amen.
Before we conclude this portion of our service today, I do want to give you a benediction. I also want to remind people that the Zoom will stay on so that you can chat with people, and there will be soft Yom Kippur appropriate music playing in the background. We are going to be coming together again as a community at 1 o'clock for the Martyrology and Healing service. And then again at 3 o'clock for the meditative service and the avodah service. And once again, I was able to move sunset half an hour earlier. So we will be starting at 5:30 for Mincha and Ne'ilah. So throughout last night and today, we have stood up and made confession alphabetically, listing all the wrongs we have committed. As my benediction to you, I want to offer all the ways in alphabetical order we have acted positively and justly, thus providing a more nuanced understanding of who we truly are as we continue to work for who we want to be. We have acted enthusiastically. We have blessed. We have comforted. We have contributed. We have been created. We have cultivated truth. We have denied untruths. We have been empathetic. We have forgiven. We have given full effort. We have given good advice. We have grown. We have been honest. We have inspired others. We have been just. We have been kind. We have learned. We have loved. We have been merciful. We have been neighborly. We have been open. We have been positive. We have been quality oriented. We have raised up. We have repaired. We have respected. We have shown compassion. We have been spiritual activists. We have spoken positively. We have supported. We have stirred. We have tried our best. We have been unrelenting in our quest for justice. We have been vital. We have been witnesses. We have been examples. We have yearned for justice, and we have been zealous in our desire to live ethically and make a difference in the world. As we go forward into this new year, may we always find balance, maintain our perspective, and view ourselves and others in a more three-dimensional view. May you continue to have a productive fast. See you at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 5:30.
Yashkoach.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love. Bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you.
Hi, Rena.
Hi.
Oh, hear
Rena,
my prayer.
you remember? Can you hear
Sing
me?
I can hear you, Rena.
be
Pardon me?
gracious
I can hear you.
to the